Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'll start with a little bit about, I guess my role today is to talk a little bit about crowdfunding the space, sort of some of the tools that are out there, and ideally I'll take questions from you as you go. I'm not somebody who wants to just present. If you feel like you want to ask me questions as we're going through this, I'd prefer a dialogue over just lecture. So feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm going to kind of give you a rundown on sort of what we have seen as successful crowdfunding techniques and give you a little bit of conversation about crowdfunding in general. First, just a little bit about my company, communityfunded.com. We launched back in May of 2012. You can see some of the team members here right now. The three founders, McCabe, Callahan, myself, and Ryan Stover, came together back in May of 2011 and began genesising the idea. And we brought on Matt Price, our developer, about August of 2011, and we pushed real hard for another 6 to 8 months with him, and finally got to a point of launching our crowdfunding platform. And so we've been up for 14 months now, and we're pretty excited about what we've been able to accomplish. CommunityFunded.com is a crowdfunding platform. We do things a little bit differently than some of the other ones. We're definitely leaning more towards an Indiegogo model where there's fixed and flex funding depending upon the type of project that you're running. We do allow for-profit, non-profit, and what we call neighbor in need, which is more, if you start looking into charitable solicitation laws, you find out that if you're asking people for money for charitable causes, it doesn't really matter if you're a nonprofit or not, that you have to follow certain guidelines as far as how money is given and distributed. So we created a whole platform just for people who are doing charitable causes. Think about neighbors of yours, people who are affected by the fires. We had a company or a group that got started up in Fort Collins last year after the High Park fire. Not a nonprofit, but they wanted to raise funds to help people out. And so that sort of fits into our model. What we really like to talk about here is, fusing of ideas, and the big thing to us is, we're trying to make crowdfunding not a trend activity, but something that people want to do on a regular basis. So we really look at this as people starting to come not only to a crowdfunding platform because they were asked by somebody who's a project creator, but potentially coming to these crowdfunding platforms to start buying items. A lot of people are doing pre-sale of items on their sites, but we allow businesses to offer in-kind rewards to projects so that not all of the rewards that you create for your project have to come from something you genesis. So if you have partnerships with businesses in your community, you can get them to donate gift cards and these types of pieces. So people are really coming there. We really talk about this net zero loss for the donor and the fact that if you go to get coffee anyways and there's a gift card that's $20 for a coffee shop for a project, you come on, give $20 to the project, you get a $20 gift card in reward, the project gets the money, and you as the donor are basically at a net zero loss. And so we really like this model, and we're pretty excited about where it could go. So in our minds, it's sort of fusing your buying and your philanthropy. And then for businesses, the ones who are offering the gift cards, it's really about starting to fuse their marketing budgets and their philanthropy budgets into one budget. It really is about trying to do more with less. And with the economy being what it is, people are trying to get more bang out of every dollar that they have. And so for us, this really creates one of those win-win-win type of situations. We say 1 + 1 = 3. We've got over 3,000 members. We allow individuals and organizations to register for accounts. And then, these are the up-to-the-moment stats from this morning. 58 projects, $417,000 raised. We've had donors from 38 states at this point in time, and we've had projects from about 5 states. We've mostly been located, a lot of what we've spent our time and energy on is focusing in on Fort Collins in northern Colorado for the time being. Our model was really not one to go out and just rush into this space and try to just let anything and everything come on. We've really been trying to do what we call setting industry precedents. And so that's where starting to find partnerships with Colorado State University to sort of set a trend or set that industry precedent with universities so that we can then sort of move out of that market and into the larger national and international markets. I put this slide in here. It's hard to read right now. If you're interested in crowdfunding, crowdsourcing.org is probably the place for you as far as grabbing a lot of really great information. They're crowdsourcing, so they cover the broad spectrum of crowdfunding, crowdsourcing of ideas, civic engagements. They do, they cover anything that involves getting a crowd together behind an idea. And so, with that being said, I'll kind of, make sure that what we're talking about here, I'm really going to be focusing in on my talk about how to run a crowdfunding campaign that's a rewards or perks-based crowdfunding campaign. I'm sure that you've heard a lot about the Jobs Act, and the term crowdfunding there is actually this huge acronym that I don't even remember what it stands for, but they found a way to create an acronym out of the word crowdfunding. So that is really this equity-based model that was passed through Congress, signed by the president last April. It had its 1-year anniversary of being passed, but not being actualized. It's sort of sitting in the SEC right now, waiting for them to make rules on it. They did, the SEC is not really happy about this crowdfunding bill. They're quite scared of the fraud implications is kind of their argument behind it. So they're really dragging their feet on this, and so much so that there's even a crowdfunding 2 that's moving its way through Congress at this point in time. One, because some people were unhappy with the original bill that came out and sort of some of the restrictions that it put on it, but 2, they're trying to get something that maybe puts a few more constraints on it. Yes, sir?
Could you give a brief comparison of crowdfunding, crowdsourcing versus the Kickstarter method?
Kickstarter is crowdfunding for perks. So it's a perks-based, rewards-based crowdfunding website with a threshold-based model is what you would call it. So threshold-based models mean you set a funding goal at the beginning of your project, you set a timeline that you need to reach that goal in, and then it's an all or nothing type of proposition. So people come, they swipe their credit cards, they use an Amazon adaptive payments method, which allows them to pre-charge your card. So it sort of memo posts onto your account that amount of money, whatever you pledged, is there. And if the project's successful, 30 days, 60 days later, they send another call through their processor, and then it pings your credit card at that moment. And so the interesting thing about that is sometimes crowdfunding projects don't end up getting all the dollars that were pledged to them due to the fact that, yes, Tom, yeah.
Yeah, one of the big differences is that with Kickstarter, you don't take any ownership of the company. The crowdfunding that the SEC is working on, having lots of issues with, is where you take ownership of the company. That's one of the big differences.
And there are crowdfunding for equity sites right now that are able to work within the current laws and regulations. There's sites called fundable.com. AngelList is probably one of the bigger, well-known ones at this point. But they have some serious restrictions. I mean, you've got to be an accredited investor. It's behind a sort of a login process. There's not deals that are just showing up on their site. If you went there, you'd have to go through sort of a approval process before you got to see deals. There's a site called Mosaic that does crowdfunding equity investment into solar projects around the country right now. So there are people who have found ways within the current system to sort of use this model of crowdfunding, but as far as really trying to help out Main Street America and really help out small businesses and people who aren't looking to find accredited investors but are really looking to connect with the community around them, that's really what we're waiting on with the SEC and that Jobs Act. So perks, reward-based, donation-based, is all legal, all good. You just don't give up any equity in your company. People are helping your project out for the good of helping your project out, and usually, ideally, in their minds, getting something back in return. Yes, sir?
Your site show 5, 10, 30,000. How high does that get on your program?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
In the dollar amount.
And the dollar amount?
240,000. How high?
So the question is, what's the dollar amount, the average? So the average project on our side is usually between $5,000 and $20,000, and that's kind of an industry number that you'll see out there. You know, the things that Tom was talking about at the beginning, the $1.5 million projects, the Pebble Watch ideas, these are the projects you hear the most about, but when you look at the statistics, they're the anomaly. They're the exception and not the rule, that most people are not going out and raising 6 figures. They're not going out and raising 7, 8 figures, that these are really one-offs that, you shouldn't count on that. We've really found great success if you sort of follow some steps, and I'm sure some of the other speakers today who are talking about their projects will kind of give you a lot of those ideas as well. But really that $5,000 to $20,000 range, if you're committed to your project and committed to your campaign and are willing to work hard at it, is something that's attainable by most people if you just kind of go through the process. So we've seen great success with those levels of projects. We do have up on our site right now a project that's they're trying to raise $100,000, but they've got a community around it. It's called the House That Beer Built. There's Habitat for Humanity is rebuilding a single mom and her kids' house burned down in the Hyde Park fire last year. Habitat for Humanity is building them a home. And all of the local breweries up in Fort Collins came together, so they're calling it the House That Beer Built is the name of the project. And so all the local breweries, to sort of show this collaboration and this working together, all came together on this project, and they are all brewing a special beer that you can only purchase through the project itself. And so they're pushing it through their social networks. So, New Belgiums and people like that have 400,000 Facebook friends and those types of things. So they've got a network there that can push a $100,000 project. We also have up on the site a woman who wanted to do a dog pool for $85,000, and we talked long and hard with her about it. It's one of those things we try to inform our project creators as best we can about what they should or should not be doing. But at the end of the day, it's your project, and if you feel like it's something you can go after and can obtain, we're not about to stop you from following your dream. And for us, it's one of those things where, what may seem crazy to us may be absolutely obtainable to you. You never know when the next pet rock idea is going to come down the pipeline, and while I might think it's crazy, the rest of the world might love it and buy it up like mad. So this is just sort of the landscape. Crowdsourcing is a huge idea. Crowd mining is a newer concept that's coming out. This is sort of a slide to sort of give the stats about online giving in general. Like I said, we do nonprofits and for-profits, so you can kind of see that the online giving world is really sort of increasing and increasing over time. The age, this is really also sort of speaking to the next generation of donors. Younger donors are now starting to donate more online and give more online than ever before. And so this is becoming very attractive to some older nonprofits and people who are used to using traditional methods to do their fundraising, to do their mailers and these types of pieces. They're losing donors who are sort of tapping out at as they've gotten older. They're not able to grab hold of this younger generation. And so really online giving is about to go through the roof, and like we said, in the next 4 to 5 years, they really believe crowdfunding as an industry overall should be around a $100 billion industry in about 4 or 5 years. What we kind of look at community funded is this idea of bringing resources. Resources in our mind are more than just dollars. We really are building a website here where you can start offering volunteer hours that to get your good idea off the ground, it may not always be money that you need. You might need people to come out and help you dig some holes to put a foundation in. You might need some people to come out and be a part of an event that you're trying to put on. That there's a lot of resources in communities that are sort of inefficiently being used at this point in time. And in our mind, what we're really trying to accomplish is the digitizing of resources in a community so that they can effectively be brought together. So in the future, what we really are looking to do is start providing, the ability to if you've got a nail gun in your house and somebody's trying to do a construction project and they need these X, Y, and Z tools, that you can come to the project and offer to provide those tools to the project. And so really in our mind, it's the dollars and cents obviously need to flow and need to be a part of a lot of people's projects, but there's a lot that can be done in a community with just amassing the resources necessary. So we call it resources. You bring your idea together, and then this idea of social sharing and getting out and sharing your message. And in the middle is where you find community funded. So this is what we've learned about how to be successful in your efforts at crowdfunding to date. Really, when it comes to starting a project, your project begins before you ever launch your project. That's probably one of the biggest messages I can give any and all of you is that, there's a statistic from a class, the University of Utah had a Kickstarter course that they were running, and these students in the class were seeing an 80% success rate in the funding of their projects, up to 6 figures, up to $100,000. And the one consistent piece that they found throughout the entire process was a 3-month build-up, sort of pre-hype to the launch before the project actually went live. And so there's a huge piece of this that is the pre-planning before you actually go live with your project. It's, you know, all these sites will make it extremely easy for you to hop on, go put your information in, add some images, put your video up there. They'll make it real easy for you to fill out the application, and they'll make it real easy to click that submit for review button. But the reality is that's only one piece of the prep, and you really need to be starting to put together, you know, your first degree of separation, your contact lists, you know, really sort of starting to map out what's your strategy for messaging through this process. I'm sure the people who have had projects up here, you know, will tell you that prep before you even get going is a huge piece of this. You know, you don't want to have, because once you click start on that project, your timer is ticking. And if you have to meet a goal, you've only got a certain amount of time to do it in. And so you want to make sure that when you hit start, you are ready to go. And, you know, so pre-launch, get your campaign ready, get your plan ready of who you're going to message, how you're going to message them, start making your connections to local businesses, people who could potentially offer rewards to your project before you go launch. So, you know, once you hit that launch button, it really has to become your life. I think a lot of people start their projects and they see the news and they hear about all this money coming in and they're like, I'm just going to put it out there and like manna from heaven, this is just going to fall into my lap. And the reality is that is so far from the truth, it's ridiculous. And I don't ever want to scare people about starting a crowdfunding campaign, but I want to be real with everybody about starting a crowdfunding campaign. And the reality is, it needs to be your job. I mean, if you're not spending every day, multiple times a day doing something for your project, you're not going to be successful, or your odds of being successful are far less likely than somebody who's really committed to it and dedicated to it and wants to chase this dream down. Because, you know, people love you, but the reality is you got to get your message out there. The other piece of this is, you know, a part of having a good plan and a good strategy is understanding that there's what's known as a valley of death. From the moment that your project starts, you'll be all excited, all the people you talk to were there, they funded, and you feel all good, you see this money coming in, and then one day you'll go to check it out in the morning and you'll see no funding happened last night. And then, oh, no funding happened tomorrow. And you get this 1 or 2 days and your mind starts freaking out, and you start, because you've lost the hype, you've lost the excitement in that moment. And most people at that point, if you're not prepared for that and don't have a strategy that says, okay, when the downturn starts coming, now I'm going to start sending this message out. Now I'm going to start sending these personal emails out. Now I'm going to, you know, you need to have that ready so that you continue to pick that back up in that moment, because that's where people usually give up on their campaign. They think it's over, they're never going to raise another dollar, and they might as well stop. But you've got to push yourself through that valley of death and have a plan of how you're going to message through that process, because guess what? At the other end, you are going to see that peak. All those people that you were talking to that kept saying, oh, I'll get to it, I'll fund it, I'll fund your project. No, I'm going to get there, I'll fund it. They'll be there. They'll be there right at the end. And you need to make sure that you message them about when that end is coming, and you need to make sure that you're re-engaging with everybody that you engage with from the beginning all the way through this process. Communication, 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 it's the key.
Is there a certain average when that death kind of hits?
Is there an average? It's, you know, you basically get about 1 week of some excitement, and then you really got to start going. I mean, you're going to start petering off. It's not a sheer drop off, but you're definitely going to need to start. Yeah, it's quick. I mean, people, there's so much going on right now, right? You've got to remember that, and people have a lot to look at on any given day when they open up their emails. And if you don't have an email that's coming into them, or a message on your Facebook wall, or a tweet, or a pin, or whatever, you know, whatever your methodology is, if you're not staying top of mind with people throughout the process, it'll stop real quick, because, you know, you're going to tap out the people you know the most real quick, real early on. And that's really where it's important to remind, you know, and we'll get to some of this, and if I talk too much here early on and answer your questions, I'm sure that we'll skip a few slides later on. But I mean, it's important to get out and message.
Demographics, is it easier to appeal to 35 and under than
The
35 and older?
Well, so interesting enough, we just hired a company to do some market research. We sent out a bunch of surveys and stuff, and we found that surprisingly, the average donor on our site was in the 40 to 49-year-old area. The person starting the project was generally in the 21 to 35-year-old area, right? And so there really is this piece of the demographic there that, you know, older people who are more established in their lives have a little more extra expendable income at this point in time to start giving to projects. And so while that's probably not true throughout the entire industry, you know, you're going to start seeing that. I mean, and that's where you've got to be critical on how you message, especially don't think that social media is going to be your savior, right? I mean, our average user on our Facebook page is in the 21 to 35-year-old range, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean we're hitting the demographic that's going to be funding all of the time. So, you know, you're going to see, you know, people are starting to get more accustomed to coming to Kickstarters and all of these sites, so you're starting to see that number drop. And like you saw in that previous slide, the average donor is becoming younger when it comes to online donating. Yes, sir?
How do you decide what's the best length of time for your campaign?
30 days or shorter is ideal. There was a statistical analysis done by the Wharton School of Business that really took, you know, they dove into Kickstarter's data. I mean, it's the best analysis you'll find right now. It's still such a burgeoning industry that it's hard to see, but you want to be very focused, right? Longer is not always better, because all that does is extend out that valley of death even longer and even longer. And if you didn't have the gumption to make it through in the first little dip down, then you're not going to have it at the very end. And so we really recommend 30-day projects. You know, we had a project, our first band got funded on community funded. They raised $5,200 in a 15-day period, right? Because that's all they did. They had a solid base of an engaged community that they went after, and they went after hard for 15 days, and they were able to raise it. And it was, you know, the difference, they did 15 days on us, and they had previously launched a Kickstarter project that they did for 30 days that they only raised $1,200 on. And so, you know, and that just kind of speaks once again to platform is not always equal to success, right? 80 to 90% of the traffic that you drive to your project is going to become because you asked them to, or somebody very close to you asked them to. The thought that just because there's more users on a site means you're going to get more extra eyeballs, that's somewhat true, but you're also mixed in with a lot more projects, a lot more going on, and people aren't using crowdfunding sites yet necessarily in this shopping aspect that I was talking about earlier. People are still kind of just going there because they were told to, and less people are going there right now at least to just shop and look for cool items that are coming out. And so you've definitely got to take that into consideration. Yes, sir?
The 30 days that you're talking about, is this the duration of time you're raising funds, or is this the duration of time to produce the product you're raising funds?
So how long, what is the 30 days that I was referring to? 30 days is the life of your project. So a 30-day live project, but that means a 30-day pre-launch cycle leading up to it, that, you know, and even longer if it, you know, depending upon how developed your idea is, how developed your social network is at the time you have the idea, how developed your personal network is beyond just your social network. So it's 30 days once, 30-day window once you hit launch, but, you know, shorter projects can be just as successful because you're basically taking the two peaks of the valley, and the shorter you can make them, the smaller the gap is, the better off you're going to be. And after you get done with the project, it's so important, I can't overemphasize this enough, stay connected with your donors. Continue to connect with these people, because this is your opportunity to find out who was that extra 20% or 30% that you had no idea who they were that came and found your product, your idea, whatever it was you were crowdfunding for. That's new customers. That's new people that are interested and excited about what it is you're accomplishing. And you don't want to lose track of those people. And they want to know. These people who donate to your projects want to know what happened afterwards. They don't want to feel like you just came, hit them up for some money, and then left them in the lurch. They want to know, were you successful? Okay, you got the money, you reached your goal. Did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you produce what you said you were going to produce? If it was a movie, if it was a book, when's it coming out? When can I get my copy? I keep people engaged. That's the beautiful part about it. Most people see the final day of their funding as the last day of their project, and then they just let it go. And you got to keep engaging your community beyond that, because this may not be the only project you want to launch. And that's something one of the slides I'll talk about later is, you don't always have to go for the full idea right out of the gate, right? You can phase an idea out. There are people right now who are successfully, there's an example of one guy who started his own app game business. His first Kickstarter project was, I think, $5, had 2 people come on. And he went and launched another one after that. He just kept bumping it up, $1,000. Oh, and he got a bunch of people at $1,000. Kept engaging that same community, building. He launched a $100,000 project, knocked it out of the park. Because he grabbed hold of a community, continued to message them, and produced exactly what he said he was going to do, so everyone felt comfortable with him. They felt safe with him. They felt like he was a sincere, honest individual. And so the next time he went to launch another project, they loved it. They wanted more of it. And those people were advocates for his project at that point in time. Those people were also going out and telling all of their friends, hey, that last place I got that cool app for my phone, now you can go get the next one with me. Let's go together. And so really, don't think you've got to do this just once, and don't think that it's only a one-time shot to get something like this accomplished. Think about it as, what do I need right now in this instant to make my idea be able to move to the next step? And then from there, what do I need from there? And keep holding on to that community, because it becomes easier and easier if you've already got an engaged community every time you go through the process.
Would it make sense to team up with a guy like that and use his network?
I mean, would it make sense to team up with a guy like that? I mean, there are networks out there right now. There are consultant companies that are popping up all over the place to sort of help you with the process. It never hurts to ask. That's kind of going to be my last slide. You kind of took it out of me, but that's the reality of crowdfunding in general. Is it never hurts to ask, and most people in the crowdfunding space, because it is so social, because everyone's coming together to help each other succeed. Most people, it's not competition for them. They want to help the next generation. It's that mentorship piece, and that's another function and feature Community Fund is building in, is this mentorship network where you can launch your project and go invite people with previous experience to come look at it, give feedback on it. There's crowdsourcing of ideas here that is going on as well. You've got it. Money is one piece of this, but there's this other idea of, can I crowdsource my idea with my community as this process is going through? And that's to some companies out there, to some people who launch these projects, they honestly don't even care if they make their goal. They're really in it for this 30-day window of engaging a community, of really getting a community together and asking them, so we have this new product here. What do you think about it? What could we do better with it? Give me your input. People want to share their ideas with you, and the more you can take that in and make them feel like their ideas are valuable, the more likely they are then to potentially open up the pocketbook later on and help you out with that idea when they can see that it's you, that you believe, feedback. That's in any business right now. If you don't have a feedback loop for your company or your business or your idea, you're missing out. People want to give you their feedback. You should be taking it in, and you should be evaluating it and thinking about where your next pivot in your concept will be. We talked about this briefly already. 80 to 90% of the people who come to fund your project are going to be directly driven to the project by you. When you go to look at Google Analytics on these projects, you're going to see the referral data is going to be direct traffic. You're going to see very little Google searching and people randomly stumbling across it. It'll be direct driven traffic. Like I said before, build your social network before you launch. Everything you have to be ready in every single way. There's another thing with the woman with the pool, the Soggy Dog pool, the $85,000 project. She started her project. She just launched her Facebook page. She didn't even have enough friends on her Facebook page to get the unique URL to go with it, right? Now here she is, 60 days after her project started, and she's got 500 Facebook friends, right? That should have happened way before her project ever started, right? And that was the messaging we told her, and hopefully she'll learn from this, and maybe she'll take in what she learned and start another project that's more reasonable and can engage the community, because obviously 500 people think her idea is somewhat worth tapping into and finding out more about. She just sort of did it in the wrong order.
Is there a ratio? Like if you have 2,000 people, that equals 20%?
There's no real ratio. I've read several blog posts, post-mortems from people who have done crowdfunding campaigns, and they said don't expect more than 10% of the number of friends on your Facebook wall to actually come and fund your project. It's a heck of a lot easier to hit like and sure I'll accept or like your project or like your page on Facebook than it is to swipe that credit card and put dollars in. And so, you know, that's why, you know, you'll hear me talk a lot about this. It's about an engaged community. It's not, you know, it's the quantity versus quality type of argument, right? You want quality engaged people in your community. The quantity is nice because obviously if it's 10% of a huge number, you're doing all right. But the reality is you need an engaged community. If people aren't engaging you and excited about your project and your idea, then it doesn't do you any good. They're just people who are just happen to not, they felt bad by saying no to you when you asked them, right? To like their piece. So this is what we call our silver bullet, right? Really, even, you know, once again, to the pre-launch piece of this, tap into that first degree of separation, that first bit of your network, right? That you know if you ask them specifically, they will fund your project. The people who love and care about you the most, who will fund the project regardless of what the project is. It could be the worst idea ever, but because they love you, they're gonna put $10 in or $20 in. Collect that together. This is another stat that we got out of that Wharton School of Business statistical analysis, is people who started their project and within a day, 2 days, got it up to 50%, were 90% more likely to fund their project. If you're not at 50% of your timeline, your likelihood of success drops dramatically. It's a huge drop off at that point in time. And so the other piece of this is that, you know, it's the old adage, nobody wants to be the first person at a party, right? And that's what, you know, when you look at your crowdfunding campaign and your project here, think about it in those types of aspects. This is a party. And if you launch your project and it says something if you have $0 after 24 hours of launching your project, right? It's, you know, if nobody you know personally is willing to come out and fund your project, how is that random person who's a second degree of separation that might have gotten an email from a friend who said, come check out my buddy's project, how are they're not going to be the first ones to donate. If you can't get people on there at the very beginning donating, it's going to feel like a party where no one wants to be the first person there. Once people are there and they see activity, people then, it's that other mentality. Now people want to be a part of something that's hot. Wow, 50% funded in 3 days, this thing's got to blow up. I want to be a part of this thing blowing up. People want to be a part of that joint success. That's what, you know, that's a part of the messaging at the end, reminding people that we as a team were collectively successful in bringing this beautiful idea together. And so, you know, again, the more pre-prep you do coming into your project, the more successful you're going to be once you launch that project. So, you know, everyone's asking the questions ahead of the slides, so we can kind of skip through this, but you know, this is back to that idea of the average project. You know, the wheelhouse for projects is a $5,000 area that if you're, you know, that's going to be, most people are going to be, their likelihood of success is going to be greater. It's an easier accomplishment. The numbers feel better as soon as small amounts come in. The percentages go up faster, but you've just got to really think critically about your idea. If you're asking for more than $5,000, you know, how are you going to get to that point, and do you have that engaged community that can make it happen? And this is, once again, what is your, you know, using some of these terms out of the lean startup and these types of pieces, you know, what is your true minimum viable product? What is the absolute minimum you need to get done to start your dream moving forward? You don't have to, like I said, you do not have to get to the end dream in moment one. It's patience, patience, patience. Start engaging your community on what is the minimum viable product to be something to move your idea forward, and then do it again and do it again, right? Do something well and repeat. Do something well and repeat. Yes, sir.
Have you seen anything about what the differentiators are between somebody that raises $10,000 and somebody that raises $100,000? Is there any key factors that?
I would say engage communities, right? That's a lot of these ones you see. There are indie game companies, right? these companies already have, when you look at, to the same point of the New Belgium, who's got 400,000 Facebook friends, especially when it comes to a lot of the games and a lot of these pieces, they have a network that already wants what they have, and so it's a lot easier for them to get to that next stage. When it comes to the average person, somebody like myself, going out and trying to raise $100,000, my network is not necessarily as engaged, and do I have enough people? I mean, when you start really breaking it down to some simple math equations, right? And you say to yourself, okay, if the average person, and on our site, the average person gives between $75 and $100 to a project. So if you take $100 and you say, okay, well, I need to get 10,000, well, there you're at your math problem right there, right? You're saying, okay, well, that means I need to find 100 people who are willing to give me $100, right? And do I know 100 people who have $100 to give? Am I that type of person? Or, then you step it up to that next level and say, okay, now I'm going after $100,000. Well, that means I need to know 1,000 people bare minimum who are willing to give me $100, or at least a portion of that. Yes, sir.
Right, and can I clarify? What you're doing is you're pre-selling products, so that's a very different thing. So, you're saying, can I find 1,000 people that will buy my product on Wish or a Hope for $100? And so I think that it's a really important distinction, because you're still talking about people just making donations. And I think part of what makes Kickstarter a different world is that I'm pre-purchasing a DVD of a movie. I'm pre-purchasing a book that you're going to publish, and there's a chance you're not going to get funded. There's a chance your book's going to be crap, or the game that I get is actually not going to be playable. But there's still a sort of tangible, typical commercial relationship where I give you something and in return I get something else.
There's always rewards going back and forth, but it's not always a pre-sale. There's Lyric Cinema, an independent cinema up in Fort Collins, switched over. They were forced to go from real projectors to digital projectors out of nowhere. They needed $150,000 to switch over. That's that's where their model is more to what I talk about, which is selling something to people who already want to buy something, and are it really is getting something back in return, right? There was no product there. It was, we're either going to shut our doors right now, or the community is going to believe that we need an independent theater still in this community, and we're going to step up and we're going to go after this and raise $150,000 to bring new projectors into our space. There's a publishing company in Fort Collins right now, a Wolverine publishing company. They're a nonprofit publishing company that has an Indiegogo project right now. Theirs is about creating a new space. They need to expand their space. It's not about a tangible item for them. It's about an expansion of a company and a business. But they all have rewards. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's perks based, it's rewards based, and why I probably talk about it a lot more in a donation mindset is because you read your terms of service on any of these sites. Guess what? You are not guaranteed that item that they said they were going to give you, right? You really have to look at this and say to yourself, am I willing to truly give this money? And the reality is I may not ever see that item back in return. Most people do a good job about it, and those people will be successful at moving forward and doing another project. But there are people out there who, you'll hear it's like 9 months later, and it's like, I haven't heard a word from this project creator. Their project was successful. And so that's why, once again, I speak about it in donation terms, because truly it's a luxury that you're getting something back in return, and that it's not a guarantee. It really is not a shopping experience. It's not e-commerce. People are pre-selling their items, but those people also have to make them still at the very end, to your point, and that's very true.
You mentioned Indiegogo a couple times. Is that a platform?
It is. It's another platform. It's funny because they were actually the first platform. They were out ahead of Kickstarter, but Kickstarter, their methodology and how they went about their Indiegogo took a stand about not taking some investment dollars early on, and Kickstarter said, we're going to take some investment money, and they got pumped with some funding early on from some venture capitalists, which really allowed them to springboard, and Indiegogo sort of took more of a hard line. Indiegogo since let back on that, and they've also gotten some funding and brought in some venture dollars. But it's kind of interesting because I hear a lot of times people are like, oh, Indiegogo looks exactly like Kickstarter. And it's like, well, actually, Kickstarter looks exactly like Indiegogo, but that was just nobody thinks about it in those terms. Yes, sir.
Blue, how does somebody that's never done one of these decide which of those platforms, why is yours better, why is?
Yeah, I think you're going to start finding, I mean, there's over 140 live crowdfunding platforms in the US right now, right? And we were just at a conference where they predict by the end of 2014 that you will see 1,000 crowdfunding platforms out in this space right now. But that's going to lead to, aggregation. People are going to start buying up these niche markets. And so you want to start finding different sites have different features, right? Kickstarter is an all or nothing site, and they're about the creative industries. So they do, they're arts and culture projects. They do some tech stuff because that's sort of the creative industries in their mind. But that's kind of where their space is. And then, Indiegogo will take anything you send at them, community funded. We do, nonprofits, for-profits, and everything in between. I think it's about trying to define where do you feel like your product fits best, right? We really try to, we try to really get nothing but quality projects up on our site. So while you go to our site and you only see 10 projects up there right now, we feel good about those 10 projects. We're not open the floodgates and let everybody come on. I think you go to some sites, start checking them out, see what features and functionalities they have, and do they meet what you're looking for. And if you find a niche site that meets your needs, then maybe that's the best place for you. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of those niche sites. And where community funded's coming with our Empowered By solution is really this idea of we have the ability, like we did with Colorado State University, to allow anybody who wants to start a crowdfunding platform to use our technology by starting a website, opening up a web page, and dropping 2 lines of code into that web page, and you have a fully functioning crowdfunding platform that links into community funded. And so you can create your own niche community on your own website and do your crowdfunding there, but all of that also connects up to community funded at the same time. And so I would just say you got to do your homework. Don't just rush into them, and definitely, that's where that 80 to 90% comes in. That's the myth, right? Is if I go to a site that has more users, then I'm a lot more likely to be successful. Well, you still have to drive your own traffic, and you still, so I would just always caution you to be careful of the quickie websites. There are definitely some people out there who hopped into this industry the same way that project creators did. Oh man, look at Kickstarter. These guys, manna's fallen from heaven on these guys. They just put up a website, and now they're taking a cut of every project that comes through the site. But you'll look at there, and it's 0%, recent, closest to ending, 0% funded, 0% funded, 0% funded. You don't want to be in that mix. You want to be in the mix with a bunch of other successful projects, and you want to show your success with them. So
in an industry, crowdfunding in general, or crowdsourcing in general, that's so dynamic and changing so quickly, are there any fundamental trade publications, educational resources, anything that kind of tracks that stuff?
Yeah, that's the crowd. Are there any industry resources, anybody who's tracking this type of information right now? And I would say yes, that crowdsourcing.org is probably one of the better sites if you want aggregated data. They do industry reports. They just they just published their 2013 industry report. There's a CFPA, CFPA, Crowdfunding Professionals Association.org. They're also another group that does a lot of providing of data and information on their website. Those are kind of the 2 that I would hit up first. And from there, you're just, especially from crowdsourcing.org, you're just going to find a plethora of links to other websites and other information regarding crowdfunding.
How important is it to be local? To be able to run up the street and have your assistants, or do you?
I think it's. Yeah, I mean, we bring project creators in and let them come in. I mean, that's, we hear that a lot from people, and one of our spin-off ideas is really trying to think about this in like small business development center mindsets of really trying to start populating these little sites. If we can start finding singular individuals, it's sort of that spark that hops into the next community, because it really is nice to have somebody that can sit down and talk with you for a moment and give you some information. We'll talk with you over the phone. We're more than happy to help and assist as you go through the process. We give a ton of resources and a ton of information and a ton of data. So it's nice to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and you can actually sit down and have a face-to-face conversation. And to your question about how important it is to be local, I think it's also important to think about your community locally. And really, as much as we talk about all this stuff being online, there is still a human aspect of this about connecting with your community in a face-to-face world. And I think that's one of the pieces when people fear the misuse of the equity-based crowdfunding in the future. It's really, you should be funding at that level, especially people you know personally, right? If some guy just randomly shows up in your town, and he's like, I need you guys to hook me up with $150,000, right? And I want you to invest in my company or to be a part of my idea. If you don't know this person, if you've never met this person, I mean, you always want to think about it in those terms. You wouldn't just randomly give it to somebody, who you never met before, and you certainly shouldn't without doing your research and your homework on somebody online. But that is the beautiful thing about crowdsourcing. There was a company that was trying to tout themselves as this one gaming company on Kickstarter. They launched this project. Kickstarter didn't, catch anything funny about it. It got pushed live. And within a day, the community came and started policing it. And they're like, that's not the guys this isn't that company. That's not the company that made this. And sure enough, Kickstarter pulled that project in a 24-hour period. The crowd will do a good job of policing itself. And so always keep that in mind, and that gets back to this idea of make sure you get some people in and funding your project, because if somebody comes to your project and they don't see anybody else there, that's some red flags are popping up in people's minds that this may or may not be a legit piece. So, like we said, break your campaign, create a roadmap to success, create your, different pieces of your campaign, both online and in the real world. So here we talk about the real world reach out, start your blogs, get your emails set up. I mean, get your templated emails ready to go. You're gonna wanna personalize emails to different people you know better than other, but just start getting it. You can start up in your emails draft after draft after draft. Don't wait until the project's going to start creating your emails and start creating all the content that you're gonna start pushing out over that 30-day window. You really, again, once you hit the go button, you wanna start the campaign and moving forward, and you don't wanna be thinking about what you should be doing after the campaign's already started. So, continue to connect. Never forget that the real world value is important just as much as your online value. All comes down to the community. Like I said, it's an engaged community. You need to get people out there who are willing to share your message, and you need to ask them to share your message. It's great that people come and fund your projects, but that's where, after somebody's funded, you want to connect with them, one, to say thank you immediately after you see some new funding come in. Let them know how important that was, but that's also your opportunity to give them your message about, hey, share this message with your community. Share this email, if you wouldn't mind, with your contacts. Share this post with your Facebook friends. Share this tweet. Have a plan of attack about it. The people who did believe in you, how are you then going to get them to become the evangelists for you? Nothing's more valuable these days than that third-party referral. When somebody that I know and trust sends me an email and asks me to do something or says go check something out, I am far more likely to do that than just stumbling across something randomly and having no connection to it whatsoever. And so keep that in mind as you go through here, that it's not always dollars and cents. Dollars and cents are important, but people spreading your message and people putting your ask out there to their networks and their community is huge, huge, huge. So be personal and authentic. And this kind of goes into, we haven't really talked about the project video, and I'm sure you'll hear from a lot of the people who who will speak later today about the value of a project video. Our message is always, you need a good video, but it does not need to be Hollywood style level caliber of video, right? That really, when it comes down to your video, you need to be sincere in it. You need to be honest. You need to be telling people what it is you're trying to accomplish, why it is you're trying to accomplish it. The why is huge. Why does this matter to me? When I come to watch your video, why do I care about what you're doing? There is a huge difference between talking about these lofty ambitions and these lofty goals and really speaking to the why, and the why is what's always going to connect with your donors.
Is there a certain length of video that you kind of want?
If you're doing anything longer than 3 minutes, you're probably pushing your luck. I would say probably a 90-minute or 90-second sort of push right there is critical. And remind yourself that you don't have to have everything in the video all at once, right? You can do project updates, right? So on community funded, we want you to start, it's a part of your messaging. So day one, launch an update. We just launched. We're so excited. This is amazing. You know, 3 days in, here's an update. You know, Billy over here, my friend, here's one of the funders. He just, you know, you don't have to, the whole message of your story doesn't have to be a part of that first video. That first video needs to be authentic. It needs to talk about your why, and it needs to tell people what they can do, right? Never forget that. People get so lost in their video and the whole idea of their big idea that they forget that at the end, you still need a call to action. Tell people at the very end of that video, how exactly can you help out this project at this point in time? And it's important because, you know, people are going to stumble across your projects on YouTube, right? You know, we require all of our projects, and most sites do, to upload to YouTube, and it gets tons of search results. It's the, you know, next to Google, it's the place people search next right now. And so people who may not have ever heard of community funded, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, wherever your project is at, could stumble across your video just in doing some random searching on YouTube. And you want them to know at the end of that video, if they believed in what you were saying, where to go to do something about it and what it is they can go do. So it's important to keep that in mind. And, you know, even so much so that Kickstarter has launched a portion of their site now that's just browsing videos, right? Play a video, scroll and go to the next one. Play a video, scroll and go to the next one. But you'll find, you know, it's about sincerity in your message more than it is about some Hollywood style production. And again, you know, we hear this from a lot of people that, I just don't have time to make this video, you know. Well, find some resources in your community. Find, you know, there's public access stations and people like that who are willing to work to help you get your content. Maybe it's worth a couple $100 investment if you're not comfortable with it. I mean, you have to think about this as, you know, dollars invested are, you know, they will return themselves to you. And dollars you invest early on, especially if you're planning out your campaign and planning out your funding goal, you can build that into what you're asking, right? So if you say, I'm gonna need $1,000 up front to do marketing and video and this type of stuff, well, put that into your project budget, right? So that if you make it and you're successful, you're gonna pay for the upfront costs as a part of it. You know, we'll speak more to that as we talk about your rewards and making sure you're accounting for those as you're putting your project together. But if a project video is scaring you away from doing a crowdfunding campaign, and you think it's too much work, or I can't, you know, then it's, you know, it may not be the space for you. And you definitely got to think critically about, you know, how much work and how much effort are you willing to put in if you can't, you know, if you can't find, we were actually just thinking about this and trying to add this feature to our website where when you're in the application and we ask you to do the project video, just allowing you a record button in that moment, right? That just pops up your webcam and says, tell us your story right now. And that's, I mean, to us, that's what it's about. You know, and different sites might say different things, but to us, it's about a sincere message, an honest message coming directly from you, and it doesn't have to be fancy and it doesn't have to have a ton of bells and whistles.
So real quick, you touched on no more than 3 minutes, be under 4 minutes. Understanding kind of the attention span of most internet consumers, you want to hit that. Again, I've seen, you know, we go into the TED model, which is up to 20 minutes. But you're saying keep it very short.
So keep them short, asking about the TED model of the 20-minute video. That's where I say, remind yourself that video that you're posting there has a purpose of grabbing people's attention real quick and wanting to make them read more about your project or hopefully just click the fun button and go. But ideally, you've got more updates that you can give, and that's where you want to put the longer video, so that if you've grabbed that person in and they like what you're talking about, then they go and start grabbing the longer video to talk more about it. So, you know, as you start considering what you're going to be giving, right, you know, the key piece in this is design a reward system, then create value for your items. You know, there are perks, these rewards that come directly as a piece of your project, but I think that one of the interesting pieces that people forget about is experience, right? That experiences are something that people want too, and experiences are things that people will pay for also. One of the projects that was the first to launch on our site was a gentleman named Charlie Clifford. He's making a health bar called Charlie Bars up in Fort Collins. And one of the rewards he offered was a day mountain biking with him. So, you know, he would bring out the lunch, he would take you to his favorite, site where he likes to go mountain biking, and he'd take you mountain biking for a day. That thing went like that. There was a project for a neighbor in need situation where this, this little girl, 12-year-old girl wanted to help out with this project. She offered babysitting hours. Babysitting hours went off she couldn't keep her babysitting hours on there long enough. I mean, it was just, she put them up and people were on them like that. We had Pateros Creek Brewery was looking to expand. They had a $1,000 follow around the brewmaster for a day reward. Snapped that up early on in their project, and guess what? That was one of the ones that was grabbed by somebody that they had no idea who they were, right? They saw the $1,000 reward get claimed, and of course, as a project creator, you're like, who grabbed that? Who should I be thanking right now? And they looked and they all went amongst the company, and they're like, do any of you know this guy? And no one knew him, right? But that guy wanted that experience of being a brewmaster for a day and was willing to pay $1,000 to do it. I was at a presentation with the guy from the CEO of Rocket Hub, where he talks about he was one of the first projects on Rocket Hub was for his ukulele band, and he offered to go surfing with him at his favorite surf spot. Got $1,000 reward, got claimed by somebody he'd never met before. He's talking about how funny it was to be paddling out into the middle of the ocean in wetsuits with some dude he'd just met 15 minutes earlier, right? But people will pay for these experiences, and the cool thing about some of these experiences that you can offer is they don't have a lot of upfront cost associated with them, right? You were going to go on that mountain biking trip anyways. Why not bring somebody along? I mean, there's a lot of these pieces that are low cost, high value to the people who are coming and wanting to donate to your project. So don't forget that experiences and simple things. There was a project on here was selling limericks and haikus like you would not even believe, right? I mean, there's just simple things that they were able to do as a group of people who all were able to make this happen. There's some really cool stuff that people can make a reality. So I've just been given the 5-minute signal, so we're going to quickly go through as much of this as I can here. Like I said, make sure that you keep the cost and including delivery in your mind as you're pricing out your reward systems, right? You'll hear that a lot from people when they come back at the end of their campaign and they say to themselves, oh man, I asked for $5,000 and at the end of this I only got $2,000 in my pocket because I forgot that I got to pay for all these rewards. I got to ship all these rewards to people. There's a lot of cost associated with. I mean, the money's coming in, but you still got to give these rewards like we talked about, and that comes at an expense. And so as you're building out your campaign, this campaign needs to pay for itself at the same time. So when you get, as you go through the process, make sure you're adding it all up and really putting together a strategy on how you're going to pay and how you're going to deliver in a timely fashion the rewards that you promise to people, because it's not cheap and it's not always quick and easy, and people want them. Yes, ma'am.
What about taxes?
Taxes, well, that's the interesting thing, right? This is this gray area that we were talking about where it comes down to, I'm not a tax lawyer, I can't tell you, what to do, but we're definitely in a gray space because when you read the terms of service, people are talking about these as donations. If I was a project creator, I probably would consider it some sort of revenue and potentially have to pay sales tax on it, especially with the new legislation that's just gone through about online sales tax starting to come out for all users. So I would say be very wary of it and make sure that, I would definitely, if you're somebody who's serious about doing this, definitely consult a CPA, somebody who knows what the actual legalities around your sales tax laws and the requirements at this point in time. It's a consideration, and I would say look into it before just launching and thinking you don't have to pay them, especially if you end up being one of those blow-up projects that ends up at $100,000. You could potentially have a huge tax burden on you at that point in time.
What was the sales tax you were just talking about, federal or state?
The federal one just went through, so they're going to push it. Amazon's going to be offering a service that allows you to calculate out sales tax depending upon where you live and where the other person lives. So it's something to very much be aware of. And like I said, I'm not a tax attorney, so I can't tell you exactly what to do, but I would look into that hard before I launch the project. Again, keep in mind that there's fees also associated with this. No matter what crowdfunding platform you're on, you're going to have some sort of success fee that they charge you at the end. These generally range between 7 and 12% depending upon what the site is that you're using. And so that's coming out of, if you're raising $5,000, you got to chop off, $50, $500 out of that for a 10% going to pay credit card processing fees and all of these other fees. And like I said, communicate, communicate, communicate. People want to be vested in you. They want to know more about you. They want, you want them to be engaged in your idea and your product and whatever it is you're trying to provide. And then once again, it's the kind of the last piece, which is never be afraid to ask. It's important. People want to be asked. That's the thing. If you go into fundraising and talk with a lot of nonprofits, people want to be asked for money. They want to help. I mean, they're not going to tell you that, but it's a good feeling when you're somebody who gets asked and you can help somebody else out. People enjoy that feeling, but they're just not going to open up their pocketbooks without being asked first. And you can't think that just putting your project out there is an ask, that that a social media post is an ask. You really need to be conscious in the fact that you need them to ask. Don't just, like this says, support my project has a different statement to it than, can I count on you? Can I count on you to give me $5? Can I count on you? Or, hey, you just go support my project if you want. You got to get a little bit harder with the ask. And I think some of the project creators who come up later might tell you, you've got to be sensitive with it. You don't want the hard ask right at the very beginning of your project. You don't want to just be beating people up. You want to message them, you want to massage this, and then you want to get to the hard ask towards the end when the final days are coming. It's like, now it's time. If you said you were going to do this, it is time to get out there. There's no waiting for tomorrow. And don't be afraid to push that out there. And don't be afraid to message all the time. You got to explain to people, this is 30 days of my life that is going to hopefully make my life, your life, and the world around us a better place. And there's nothing wrong with messaging that hard for 30 days. I don't know how many of you got emails. This will be my last little story before we go. There was a gentleman who was on, I think it was on Jon Stewart a couple of weeks back, who had done the email campaign for the Barack Obama campaign during the 2012 process. And they had this moment, and I don't know if any of you were on the mailing list, you know how many emails that these people sent out. I mean, daily, multiple emails. And they had this internal battle amongst themselves of this conversation of, are we going to get a lot of people who unsubscribe to this? Are we messaging this way too much? And what they found was they went from raising $15 million a month to raising $150 million a month because they pushed. And the unsubscribe rate was surprisingly low and obviously was more than made up for by the people who felt engaged and wanted to be messaged. So don't be afraid to message, and it's going to be okay. 30 days later, you can send out an apology letter for all those people who you're like, I know you were some of the people who helped me out on day one and had to listen to this for 30 days. I appreciate everything you did, and I appreciate you being patient with me. So with that being said, thank you guys for coming. Please check out communityfunded.com, and I'll have business cards somewhere in the back, and you can pick them up.